Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Robbie Rhino, and in today's video I have two replays for you in one of my favourite tanks inside World of Tanks console. The tank in question is the WZ-122, which is a Chinese premium Era 2 medium tank for the Eastern Alliance in the Cold War game mode. And like I say, this is one of my favourite tanks in the whole of the game, and it's definitely, well, in my opinion anyway, one of the most powerful premium tanks you can get your hands on in Era 2 of the Cold War game mode. And why am I putting this video out now? Well, this tank is currently on sale in the store for 5,700 gold, which in World of Tanks console terms is pretty damn good for a premium Era 2 tank. It would be even a relatively decent price for a World War II Tier 8 premium tank, but for a Cold War premium Era 2 tank that makes a ton of silver, I think this thing is absolutely fantastic. Its firepower is absolutely brilliant, meaning that even if you're not the best player, you can put out some pretty nice damage numbers with this tank. You have a 120mm gun, and you have an ATGM auto-loading launcher with 4 shells per magazine, and you can carry 2 whole magazines per battle, and you can make use of the multiple weapon system, meaning all you have to do to switch between your 120mm gun and your ATGMs is hold down the ammo select button, and there's no time penalty, and that's what makes this thing so damn strong. So we're going to start off by talking about a couple of downsides to this tank, a few of the statistics, and also the pros of this tank and why I think it's so damn good. And then we're going to talk about my commander and equipment setup, and then the gameplay in the background. So what are the couple of downsides to start off this video? Well, slightly low hit points at 2,560, and as you are a first line kind of support medium tank supporting your heavy tanks, you do have to be a little bit careful about when you pop out to get shots off with your 120mm or your ATGMs. You have armour on the turret that can work sort of half of the time, and on the whole you can get the odd miracle bounce, but for the most part in Era 2 you will be penetrated by pretty much anything you come up against, so definitely be wary of your low hit points. You have a slightly low view range of 480 meters, which you can boost up with your command and equipment setup, and as you are playing that kind of first line support role, or in my opinion that's how you should play this tank, it doesn't matter an awful lot. With the True Vision system in play, you can definitely make the most out of that 480 meters view range. In terms of its mobility, this is kind of somewhere in the middle. It's definitely not the worst, but definitely not the best. It's just enough to get you around the battlefield. You can go 55 kilometers an hour forwards, 25 in reverse. You've got a power to weight ratio of 18.43. Your turret traverse is 36 degrees a second, and your hull traverse is 46 degrees a second, so not too bad for a medium tank, and it's definitely enough to get your gun on to things that are trying to circle around you, and it's definitely enough to keep up with the flow of the battle. And now we're going to come on to the best aspect of this tank, and that's its firepower. We're going to talk about its 120mm gun first, and then we're going to talk about its ATGM 4-shot autoloader. So the 120mm gun on the WZ-122, it fires APF SDS as standard, heat as its secondary or premium ammunition, and its third ammunition choice is HE. In terms of the alpha damages, on the standard rounds it's 470, on the premium rounds it's 470, and on the HE it's 610. The penetration is pretty low on the standard rounds at 372mm of penetration, so you're going to have to make the most of flanking your opponents and aiming for weak spots. 440mm of penetration with the heat rounds, and 130mm of penetration with the HE rounds. You have a fantastic shell velocity of 1615 meters a second with your standard rounds, 960 meters a second with your heat rounds, and 905 meters a second with your HE rounds. And your DPM just for the 120mm gun is 3,440 damage per minute. I carry full APF SDS rounds because heat is very hard to use in Era 2 of the Cold War game mode due to all of the composite armor, and I'd much rather have that fantastic shell velocity for sniping and snapping my shots in with the pretty decent gun handling this tank has. And in terms of the ATGMs, then you have two lots of clips on this tank. You have 4 ATGMs per magazine and 8 ATGMs in total. The ATGM's alpha damage is 850 with 460 millimeters of penetration, but bear in mind the shell velocity is extremely slow at 120 meters a second, and the DPM for just the ATGMs alone is 3000. So when you combine that with the DPM of the 120 millimeter caliber gun, which is 3440 DPM, your total combined DPM is 6441, and I'll put that on screen for you now. That absolutely dwarfs any other premium Era 2 medium tank, and that's why this thing is so damn powerful and so damn fun. So we're going to watch the end of this game, then we're going to hop into the second game. I'm going to talk to you about my equipment and commander setup, and then we'll get talking about how I like to play this tank and why I think you should go out and get it if you can afford it. So that's it for the first game there, where we finish in the MVP slot with a nice 500,000 silver profit. That's only a second class, showing you how well people are playing this tank. 1606 base experience points, 4 kills, 6.8k direct damage, 1.2k assistance, and a fantastic game. And the next one will be that little bit better, so we're going to hop over to the second game now. So then we're now into the second game here on Cao Bang in the WZ-122. This is going to be a slightly better game than the last one and show you the kind of things you can get up to in this fantastic tank if the games are slightly more drawn out. But first we're going to talk a little bit about my commander and equipment setup. So what equipment do I run on the WZ-122? Well, I run an advanced loader, improved ventilation and gun stabilizer, and with my commander I run 6th sense, born leader, rapid loading, steady aim, rapid aim, snapshot, run and gun, armor angling and track mechanic. I would say that the armor angling and track mechanic are the two skills that you could switch out for something different. The gun handling does need a little bit of help to make it as good as some of the other premium Era 2 medium tanks, but once you use this setup I'd find that the gun handling is pretty damn good. In terms of my gun handling now, with the commander and equipment setup applied, I'm now looking at a 6.14 second reload on my 120mm gun, an aim time of 1.88 seconds and an accuracy of 0.24, so that's pretty good. In terms of the armor angling, it can help you stay in the game that little bit longer, but you could improve the something else about your tank, like the concealment or any array of the other skills. And I find track mechanic does help because I'm going to be brawling with the heavies as a first line support vehicle, so sometimes if I come around get tracked out of place and I haven't got my auto loading ATGMs ready and I'm not reloaded, it can cause a bit of trouble. So I choose to run this setup as it's a commander I had on another tank, and I keep switching it back and forth within the Eastern Alliance. So if you run the same equipment and commander setup as I do and as I have done in these gameplays you're watching in the background, you'll now have a DPM of 4597 just with the 120mm gun, and a DPM of 3494 with the ATGMs. And if you combine those numbers, that's 8091 DPM. Of course, once you fired all your ATGMs off, you will just drop down to that DPM of 4597 on your 120mm, but even that alone is pretty good. And to have the access to the ATGMs really does make an impact in the battle. For those of you that want to know how long it takes to reload 4 shells, well, it's 28.43 seconds with my setup. I have an aim time of 0.94 seconds and an accuracy of 0.23. And I would say that this tank is an absolute beast, and that it's one of the best tanks you can get if you're looking for a Cold War premium tank in Era 2, especially if you like ATGMs, you like a medium tank style gameplay and you're not afraid to get stuck in, because the shell velocity on the ATGMs does mean that you need to get forwards a little bit to make it easier for you to hit them, and your gun allows you to pull back a little bit should you need to towards the sort of mid to the latter stages of the battle. And you can see here the kind of damage numbers you can do with the ATGMs, especially when you come up against lightly armoured targets, although the penetration on the ATGMs is more than enough to go through a lot of different plates if you aim correctly. in Era 2, you have to make sure you aim for like cupolas, parts that of the tank that aren't covered in composite armor, especially like the frontal holes and the tracks. Go for the sort of flanking shots into the rear and the sides, and aim for parts where there's no spaced armor, and you should make the most of these ATGMs. And the fact that you have them in an auto-loading capacity means that they're extremely effective. If you sort of track someone with one, you don't do much damage, or it gets completely absorbed, you have another one on the way, and you can switch between them and use your 120mm gun with ease, and it means that you're very fearsome, and you never know when one of these things is loaded. And that's the kind of scary thing about this tank. If you always act like you're loaded, sort of pop out and act like you're trying to go after a shot, they won't know that you're reloading your magazine or that you run out of ATGMs, and it can deter the enemy from attacking you. So in terms of the gameplay, you've seen me take my ambush opportunities as quickly as possible. So when I know that someone's fired, I'd pop round, get an ATGM into them, get a shot in with the 120mm gun, and then pull back slightly, and then I can wait for them to fire again and do the exact same thing. And when I know that I have enough firepower to take a tank completely out of the game, I'll rush in and take them. It's worth sometimes trading one shot to take out a whole tank with your firepower, and it can be so influential in the battle, and I find it just extremely fun. There was a little bit of a bug when I was playing these two games with the WZ-122. I think the gun or the ATGMs sort of looked like they were coming out of a different side of the tank, but it looks to be working pretty well for the moment. One last thing to mention, I would say, is that I run a smoke consumable to help my concealment, but also to help me get out of harm's way should I get spotted. So we finished there with 9.2k direct damage, 431 assistance, again only a second class, second on our team with 1554 base experience points, 3 kills and a nice 650,000 silver profit, and I'm sure that's with a ×2 silver booster, but you can make the silver up so quickly in this tank. It's a lot of fun, very powerful, and for 50% off for the next 5 days, I would highly recommend, if you're looking to get a premium tank, this would be an excellent choice, especially if you like ATGMs and you like a tank that has fantastic shell velocity on its standard round. So I hope that you found this little mini review and showcase of the WZ-122 helpful. I highly recommend this tank. I can't recommend it enough. It's definitely one of the more fun tanks that I've played in the whole of World of Tanks console, and I love it dearly. So if you get this tank, let me know your thoughts on it and show me some of the screenshots of your fantastic games. And until next time, I'll see you on the battlefield, and bye for now.